welcome to the IM Group's interview series. My guest today is the director of the Idaho Department of Commerce, Tom Keeley. Not only is Idaho one of the top 10 population growth states, but it's also ranked by U.S. News as one of the top 5 best states to live in. This is a designation given to those states that provide the best overall experience for their citizens. Now let's talk with Tom and learn what Idaho has done and is doing to be one of the fastest growing and one of the best states in the United States. So Tom, thanks for joining today. I appreciate you sharing your time. Your state has been characterized by U.S. News and World Report as one of the top fastest growing states. I think that's based upon federal data that shows population growth over the last 10 years. And from the standpoint of all of the things that you do for the citizens in the state, you were ranked in the top 5 best states in the U.S., again, by U.S. News. What are the most important factors that contribute to staying atop the lists as you move forward?
Marty, good to meet you, and thanks for this opportunity to meet and go over and review some of Idaho's history and maybe some of the outlook. I've been here now just about 3 years, and it's been pretty amazing since we've had growth when I started, a pandemic, and even more growth now. And the benchmarks that you described are pretty amazing. Population growth, low unemployment, business growth, et cetera. But we've had, the pandemic was really a positive for us as well to some degree, because we held back our expenses. We've had record budget surpluses, great tax relief in the state, made infrastructure investments in a variety of areas based on the CARES Act dollars that came in as a result of the pandemic. And we did a lot of infrastructure build as opposed to expense coverage. And the economy grew as a result, partly because people discovered Idaho and wanted to relocate from the big cities or from larger cities to more smaller, beautiful cities, like beautiful states like ours. So it's been pretty amazing what the positive aspects, you might say, of the pandemic. The negative is we've been discovered, so it's leading to more growth, more demand for roads, broadband infrastructure. So again, we've tried to navigate the pandemic well, and it's positioned us well going forward. And as an investment, if you could own a stock, or a state was a stock, you would buy Idaho probably still going forward. So it's been pretty amazing. But all the areas have been hitting pretty strong. Whether it be the advanced manufacturing areas, the food processing, as you know, some of the characters and some of the players there have been expanding on a variety of fronts: dairy, meat processing, French fries, potatoes, etc. But the businesses have been attracted to this state as well. We've had the most interest in the state during the 18 months of pandemic. People wanted to expand here, or people wanting to relocate or expand from somewhere else and they weren't here in the state. So again, it's been pretty amazing on that front, so that existing businesses, which is the base and the core for the state, have been doing well. We did pivot a bit in Commerce. Our team, Matt and others at Commerce, pivoted to help businesses with the PPP. So we were real active to help and with assisting where to go, how to apply for it. And so we had, I think, about $3 billion of federal funds come in, maybe 30,000 businesses. And then we did a state program as well. So again, to bridge to the future, it was really helpful as well. So, but again, existing companies did well. Our citizens really did well, and we stayed open as a state through most of that period of time. So again, it contributed to holding the economy strong during that period.
What are some of the fundamental attributes that the state has that make it so attractive for business?
Well, we're pretty much our perspective of commerce and business we're favorable toward that. We support it. We try to make it as a key ingredient to communities, whether it be rural or urban, that we're open for business. that you need to be resilient, you need to be innovative, you need to be, looking like somewhat like a farmer's mentality to some degree. Where in those, it's not it's you got to be prepared for the bad years. So I think there's some of that going through here in terms of you got reserves, you're making certain that you're investing in infrastructure, and in the good times, you're taking some of that and putting it away. And I think that's what we're doing with our surpluses from last year. We're close to, I think, $1 billion or $1.4 billion in surpluses year to date for the last 18 months. And those will be reinvested in either tax reductions, infrastructure and education, or broadband or water, some key areas to, again, help with the growth or make certain we're maintaining our infrastructure well.
You've almost,
again, we're a very attractive state. Tourism and travel is our third largest industry. And so we are an attractive place to come to visit, but then people come here and discover us, and then they want to bring their businesses here or want to work here.
I know you've said a lot about the basically the state's approach, but if you had to summarize the state's approach to economic development in a sentence or two or three, how would you characterize it?
I guess we're just very supportive. We don't leverage off incentives that well. We try to just have a very balanced or diversified approach to workforce, housing, support services and infrastructure, and basically a culture here that says, if you want to work and succeed, we're going to help you do that. And we've had a lot of liquidity events this last couple of years with startups. So again, we encourage innovation to go along with it. It's hard to put it in just a few words, other than we're very supportive and try to respond to what businesses need. We've cut back a lot of the regulation. The governor over the last 3 years has cut our regulation aspects. I think we're the least regulated state in the nation. So that's attractive for businesses to understand the certainty of the future in terms of, lack of government regulations that are too much friction on the businesses, and predictability, I think, is important.
Having worked with members of your team and local and county governments, I can say that there's a clear understanding that this is a pro-business environment within the state. Everybody understands that, which is, I think, a testament to what happens at the top with the governor, as well as with Commerce and everybody else.
And we've had a long history of pro-business too. It's not just in these last 2 or 3 years or as a result of pandemic. We've had a lot of interesting businesses, whether it be in the farm community, mining, or Micron with the chips that were late 70s, early 80s when Micron was founded here, and it's one of the largest semiconductor businesses around. And we've got another long string of innovative companies. HP was here, expanded well. So it's we keep nurturing that and helping as best we can, either through the Department of Commerce or through all the stakeholders that you mentioned, whether it be local government or county government or state level.
We're seeing a lot of high tech and automated manufacturing investment from our clients, both in progress and also in the exploratory stages. I know you've got a plan, but summarize the plan for people who are listening to this. What does Commerce do in Idaho to keep innovation alive?
2 or 3 things. I think when we're entertaining inquiries from companies that are outside the state, we again look for advanced manufacturing as ones to perhaps pursue a little bit more aggressively. Again, those that are innovative can bring higher paying jobs that can hopefully work with our institutions like the higher ed institutions with engineering, computer science, or the Idaho National Lab is here. So in the area of energy, nuclear energy, as well as other general energy and cybersecurity, again, it's high tech is one of those that we want to have a tilt toward for advanced manufacturing. But there's also advanced manufacturing innovation in our farming and dairy and food processing aspects, as we talked a little bit before this interview in terms of the new cold facility. Simplot has a similar high tech cold storage freezer business, freezer facility. And then you have the food processing, whether it be dairy or meat processing, potatoes. Again, people keep amping up the innovation and the way to get the best yield or the best margin out of the product. And then tourism and travel is another, again, third largest industry, and just showing off the state in different creative ways, innovative ways, and telling our story and showing us off, in terms of marketing. How do we be social media or be contemporary on that front is another area for our third largest business. So again, we just try to keep promoting innovation. We've got some programs, some innovative, the iGEM program here that's supported through Commerce that gives grants out to universities to help with a corporate sponsor that wants to do something innovative. We've had a number of those. I think we've had, Matt, 60, I think, of those over the last, since that program started, maybe in 2015 or so. And then our focus with the tax reimbursement incentive is only roughly about 6 or 7 years old, and it has a nice history with about 80 awards, and half rural, half urban, but a lot of, you might say, higher tech or more innovative companies tend to score higher and get those incentives if they apply.
So the availability of talent is becoming a deciding factor for business expansion decisions and new facility placement. How is Idaho preparing and maintaining the high level of skills required by business and industry as you go forward?
Starting with infrastructure, one of the projects or task force that the governor kicked off in 2019, and we led it here at Commerce, was broadband and the broadband infrastructure. So how do you get that service or that connectivity to rural Idaho, or get higher speeds to even towns in Idaho? So we partnered with a lot of ISPs, with a lot of stakeholders around the state to make certain that infrastructure was there for higher tech. Even a New Cold facility or McCain's, making certain that they had high speed connectivity was important. Mm-hmm. And we had, during CARES Act, we awarded over 50 million. I think we got 38 million done based on the timetable. And we now have an Idaho Broadband Advisory Board, and we have more funding from the state, and there'll be more from federal level. So that's one ingredient. But the other, in terms of innovation, is, again, supporting that ecosystem with entrepreneurs and innovation with the universities across the state, and then the regional approaches. So we do that. And then we try to facilitate companies that are perhaps looking here. What do you need? Is it broadband? Is it workforce training through our Workforce Development Council and their grant programs to help sponsor employers for certain skill sets that are higher earning, more higher tech, and support it that way. And we have a council that helps, in that Workforce Development Council, employers that sort of help guide or help emphasize those types of jobs and skills that where there's training needed, or we need to attract more talent.
Let's switch gears a little bit. Tom Keeley, the business person and the father, husband, friend. Tell me a little bit about your background and what's it like to be you during the daytime, or most of the daytime, business person, and what's it like to be you in the off hours?
Probably want to have Matt say, well, I can tell you the internal, I don't know what the outside view is, but well, from a first, family is so important. And my wife and I have been married 44 years, I think, next spring, but we've known each other since we were in public accounting in Chicago 47 years ago, I think, is when we met. So family, 3 sons. I enjoyed really having them during the pandemic. One has gone back to private equity in New York City, has to be there. He's been there, I think, 12 years to 13 years, pretty senior guy. And the oldest is back in town, living here, works in financial services. And then my youngest is going to become a nurse here, his second degree, and graduates here in about 3 or 4 weeks. So family, so much, but really what drives me a lot is business and commerce. I mean, I think 60 plus years I've been working until this public sector job. And this job to me is more of how do I give back to a state or to a community that I've really enjoyed living in for 27 years. And we do own a group of restaurants and other private equity and real estate type investments in this community. And I've known Governor Little. We served together on a volunteer board for a number of years, and that's where I first met him. But that was 16 years I served on that state investment board. But I'm really on about winning in business, but also making certain that we are teaching and educating and making certain innovation is always happening, because that's how you're going to maintain your position or get ahead. If you're not innovating, you're going to lose. And then I guess it really comes back to some of my baseline from, whether it be parents or growing up. Scouting was so important to me, and Eagle Scout. So, being prepared, doing a good deed daily, that kind of stuff still resonates in what I do every day. But commerce is the area that really I like, and I like making certain things happen. It's not ideas, it's ideas plus implementation. So whether it be, we have a new task force now, which is cybersecurity. Matt's working with us on that, and other commerce folks in the INL, and I co-chair that across the state. So how do we protect what we have? And that's, one is growth, and then the other is to make certain you don't lose what you have. And so cybersecurity, we've been working on that project, and it was kicked off by the governor in August. So again, it's part of me. How do we protect our citizens? How do we protect our community? But I do like to get out, when I'm off time. I do like to do outdoor sports, skiing. I went to South Dakota for pheasant hunting in November. I missed it last year due to COVID, but that was our 8th year, and really like to get out and about and enjoy the outdoors, especially in Idaho.
Yeah, you got
going through Yellowstone last November first part of November was just gorgeous, and nobody was there. So.
It sounds like, in addition to working in the business of commerce, that you and your team work on the business in terms of planning and developing programs and thinking about the future and so forth. Can you describe a little bit about how you make that work? It's so easy to get reactive to what happens day to day and not plan for the future.
Yeah. That's a good question, because the last 3 years we've been evolving, or that's been evolving in terms of our strategic plan we work on once a year. And that's, I'd say a given that's required for the state, but we've made it a lot more strategic in nature. Mm-hmm. Again, we've got tourism and travel is here. We've got business attraction. We have our business retention and expansion. We have our international trade. We have our community development block grants programs. We have our iGEM programs. Now we have broadband. The Office of Broadband is within Commerce. We do have governor's priorities that help us stay balanced, which is supporting existing businesses, emphasis on rural economic development, again, travel, broadband, community projects, because we're the federal, a lot of our federal money comes through Commerce here through our federal grant program. Mm-hmm. So that's call it our major areas. But how do we strategically make certain that we're expanding the businesses that are most attractive for the future and make us sustainable and resilient? And that's what we work on. And the team gets together. We have, again, different teams. We get together and review what's working, what's not operationally, but then strategic planning time. What is it that we need to be working on, and funding? And we're looking at some very high funding coming in for broadband. There may be some for cybersecurity. I don't see any major incentives, new incentives. We have very few incentives to work with. So we fight above our weight on that front. We just try to compete as a smaller state. But looking at that and planning and working with the governor in terms of his strategic plans, our recommendations to the governor, and then working with the legislature. I think we had a data center bill last year come in to help incent and attract data centers. Commerce carried one about renewing our 10-year business advantage. It was expiring, so we carried that. We got another 10 years on that one. And then the whole broadband, we carried how important that was. And then the legislature came up with a new Idaho Broadband Advisory Board that now oversees, with 9-member board, the deployment of funds that are here or that are coming in. And we still work with our Office of Broadband. So strategically, we've added a couple areas. We've emphasized the key ones, I think, and we do stay focused on that. We did have a major, you could say, what happened during the pandemic? We had a major, call it pullback, what was going to happen? And we worked through that both here. Matt was very active in, recreate responsibly, doing One Idaho for getting people vaccinated. We had the Idaho Rebounds Committee, which the governor formed, and we served on that to how do we get through phases of, understanding what's going on with the virus, getting PPE intact, and then how do we rebound? And then the other was the Coronavirus Advisory Council, which how do we look to deploy the 1.25 billion? So I served and represented Commerce on that with legislators, and then so that those have expired, but we did react and respond. You might say it wasn't knee jerk, but it was responsive to a pandemic that lasted a lot longer than we thought. And but we stayed pretty much true to our strategy of building commerce in the right way for the governor and the legislature.
Sounds like a good point at which we can end the interview for today. Tom, I really want to thank you for sharing your thoughts with us and the thoughts of what's happening in the state and what your plans are and so forth. It's going to be great help to the people who listen to these interviews.
So Marty, I want to thank you. I want to thank all the listeners and invite everyone to come visit Idaho, either for recreation or just to experience it or bring their businesses here. We're happy to entertain anyone that wants to look at opening a location or relocating to Idaho. So we really appreciate the opportunity here, Marty. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks again, Tom.